Hello, this is Brian from M3 Movies, and if there is one thing that people know about me and my movie taste, people in real life, it is that I absolutely hate the movie Interstellar. I don't know why this movie has become like the meme surrounding my life. It's certainly not my least favorite movie, but I do think that it is easily one of the most overrated movies that's out there, with a 71 on Rotten Tomatoes, 74 on Metacritic, and it's number 31 on IMDb's top 250 all-time list. Before I begin, I want to talk about a few things I actually do like in the movie. Of course, the visuals are phenomenal. Chris Nolan's respect for the practical effect is something that I really admire, and you don't see a lot in Hollywood. It shows off in all of his films, and it did deserve its Oscar. I also think that Matthew McConaughey is truly giving one of his best performances here, especially given the ridiculousness of so many of his lines and his character in general. I think that this scene in particular, where McConaughey sees his children grow up before his eyes, is extremely well acted, and in my opinion, easily the best scene in the film from writing perspective, from a acting perspective. It's just brilliant.
Hey, Dad. Look at this. Your grandpa. His name's Jesse. I kind of wanted to call him Coop, but Lois says, maybe next time. But Donald says he's already earned the great part, so we'll just leave it at that.
Oh dear. Oh dear. Uh-oh. Say bye-bye, Grandpa. Bye-bye, Grandpa. It's okay.
I also want to preface this video by saying that Chris Nolan is easily one of my favorite directors working today. Dunkirk was in my top 10 movies of last year. Inception and Prestige are two of my favorite movies ever. The Dark Knight is the reason that I love Batman as much as I do, and Memento inspired me creatively, as I'm sure it did every other screenwriter to ever exist. Okay, now that the praise part is over, let's get into what I actually think makes Interstellar absolutely awful. Part 1. The world. Interstellar takes place in a future where the Earth is dying. Many crops have become extinct, like potatoes, and things like corn are becoming extinct, and there are regular dust storms throughout the country. However, these aren't the only changes that have occurred in this world. This is apparently a world where the Yankees are no more than a local baseball team, and the moon landings are taught to children as propaganda. Furthermore, it is never really explained how we got to this point. All we know from Cooper's story is that crops can't grow quite as well. How does the occasional dust storm lead to the fall down of the MLB? It just doesn't make any sense. One of my favorite examples of this point is this scene right here.
Useless machines.
And if we don't want a repeat of the excess and wastefulness of the 20th century, then we need to teach our kids about this planet, not tales of leaving it.
You know, one of those useless machines they used to make was called an MRI. And if we had any of those left, the doctors would have been able to find the cyst in my wife's brain before she died instead of afterwards. And then she'd have been the one sitting there listening to this instead of me, which would have been a good thing because she was always the calmer one.
In a movie where the setting is better explained, this would be a touching way to reveal exposition as well as comment on the nature of the movie's world. But here, it comes off as mindless exposition and a what the fuck moment. Because why the hell aren't there MRI machines anymore? There's obviously still electricity, they're sitting in a lit up room, and nothing about food shortages would intuitively lead to the destruction and discontinuation of the MRI machine. It just takes the audience out of the movie for no reason and never explains itself. The setting is one of the most important parts of the screenplay, and without a well-built world, especially in a film where the world is different from our own, the movie just falters. Part 2. The characters. This movie, in my eyes, is a staple example of a movie where the screenwriters only cared about a single character. Coop is the only one that has any sort of self-discovery, sacrifice, or arc in general. Now, it's okay for there to be only one character with an arc in a film. Just see Cobb in Inception, for example, a great Christopher Nolan character. It's also okay to make a film where none of the characters really have an arc, or are all that important. See Dunkirk. Both amazing Christopher Nolan films. Where Interstellar falters, however, is that it spends too much time on characters that ultimately aren't changing, and the characters that surround Cooper don't exactly support his arc, but are rather just there as filler or plot devices. The entire Earth storyline is a great example of this, for even though it's following Murph, she's not changing. She's not learning anything about herself, but just making discoveries about the circumstances that Cooper is in. She's worried about solving gravity, whatever that's supposed to mean, but this is all just justification for Cooper's circumstances. None of this has any actual effect on the characters on Earth, other than this overarching possibility of an exodus of the human race into another planet. But this is something that we learn fairly far in that is just not possible. So everything that she had been doing up to that point is just worthless, and all the screen time that she's had feels redundant. It's uninteresting for the same reason that so many superhero villains are uninteresting. There's just no sense of drive for our characters to succeed when the world will end if they don't. The conflict is supposed to be written through the characters, and that's something that Interstellar just doesn't do, similar to so many of these superhero movies. There are also characters that are just straight poorly written. For example, an older Tom who has no reason at all for not letting his son get treatment for his medical condition. Or Professor Brand, who spends the entire movie solving gravity, waiting for a big reveal at the end. I think especially Dr. Mann, who I believe is the worst part of this terrible movie. He's a character who is driven by irrationality, but is set up to be one of the greatest minds in all of science. His drive to escape his planet is so great that he literally kills himself, which is something he could have just done on the planet. He knew that the ship would blow up if he tried to dock it, but does it anyway instead of just leaving with Matthew McConaughey and crew. And why is he played by Matt Damon? And why keep Matt Damon a secret? It's just a cameo ploy that occurs for no reason and takes the audience out of the moment, at least on first viewing. Yes, his character's motivations make sense. Of course, everybody wants to live. But it is so hard to take him seriously when the actor himself takes you out of the moment, and his dialogue is written so poorly that everything he says sounds as if it's a joke, especially during the fight scene with Matthew McConaughey. And there is just nothing more stupid than a character whose entire motivation is to live, to kill themselves 5 minutes after they make their escape. He knows that he will die, and his entire motivation as a character is to live, and yet he does it anyway. It makes no sense and takes the audience out of it. Part 3. The screenplay. The movie dedicates itself so much to being scientifically accurate for the first 2 acts. The movie is science fiction, obviously, but the tone of said science fiction for so much of the film is set in fact. It's not Star Trek. Everything has to be precise. The time difference due to gravity was calculated and played out correctly. The intricacies of space travel were recreated to a T. And then, absolutely out of nowhere, comes the ending. The movie takes the route of higher dimensions, which can play out interestingly when done correctly in, for example, Monsters, Inc. However, here, Cooper achieves access to the 4th dimension by jumping into a black hole, being saved by someone referred to as nothing but them. The movie then takes back everything it had set up previously with a strange sequence of Cooper traveling through time through the lens of Murph's bookshelf. It begs the question, if Cooper was Murph's ghost the whole time, and ultimately he wanted to stay on Earth, then why did he send the coordinates in the first place? This is also the only part of the movie where I feel the visual effects are poor. The area he's traveling through is so messy and hard to follow, which I understand is intentional, but simply results in an eyesore. The themes themselves also take back so much of what the movie was about. So much of it was scientifically accurate and set in this fact and precise, and even the logic of these characters. And then the ending is simply that love is the only thing that transcends the dimensions of time and space, apparently. It makes actually no sense. That line, in particular, is so important to the film that it is the overarching theme of the movie at the end, but literally makes 0 sense. I know that Chris Nolan likes to keep his plots simple and his themes even simpler, right? The Dark Knight is just about chaos. Memento is about revenge. Inception is about dreams, and The Prestige is about jealousy. He wanted to make a movie about love, but but makes it in this setting that's so scientifically accurate that when you say things like, love is the only thing that transcends the dimensions of time and space, it makes no sense. Love is an emotion. If love transcends the dimensions of time and space, so does fear, so does joy, so does anger. It just doesn't make sense when put right next to the intricacies of space travel and scientific calculations and data. It's not the story to portray this theme, and because it gets so lost in that, it just creates a confused, muddied movie that goes on for way, way too long. And there are the three main reasons I think Interstellar fails as a movie. I texted Aiden, who wanted me to add in that the sound mixing is just absolutely terrible, which is a point that I meant to make but had forgotten about. There are parts of the movie where background sounds or the score itself just drown out characters and entire lines of dialogue, making the movie practically unwatchable at times without subtitles. I've heard that this was actually intentional, that it was an artistic choice for the score to drown out characters at times, where the dialogue wasn't necessarily important, or at least as important as the score, but that is ridiculous. It's just a poor choice. Like, I don't know what else to say about that. I hope you enjoyed listening to this. These certainly aren't the only three things that I dislike about the film, but they're the ones that I feel are the greatest detriment to it. I would have kept going, but I knew it was Thanksgiving and I wanted to spend time with my family, so sorry. If you have rebuttals or questions, I will be in the comment section, and if there's enough interest, I could always make a part 2. Happy Thanksgiving to you all. I know that Jack and I are both very thankful for any of you who listen. It means a whole lot to us. Our socials are in the description, but I'll say them anyway. We're at M3Movies on both Twitter and Instagram. If you follow us, you better damn subscribe here as well. Support us on Patreon at patreon.com/M3Movies, and check out our website at bit.ly/M3site. We got some real cool stickers for sale, either on Patreon or the website. Like, subscribe, all that jazz. Jack's not here, but we love your stupid faces. And thanks again for watching.